some of this fantastic afternoon with him or her. I don't quite know if it's a him or a her. I can see already looking very good. Some elephant damaged some bark on it last year. I'm hoping that it doesn't have too much of a negative impact on its health and well-being. Sometimes when elephants ring bark a tree, it's to the tree's detriment. And there you can see this old man of the forest standing sentinel over this particular road and its adjacent crossing. And look at that, isn't that just a fantastic tree? Scotia brachypetala. Yeah, an interesting question. How many bird species do you find in the Masai Mara and in the in Djuma respectively? Kaylin, there's about... I did used to know the answer to this question, Kaylin. I'm not even going to hazard a guess, Kaylin. You know why? It's because I feel that I might get it wrong for you, but I'm wanting to say around about, in the Kruger National Park area, it's probably around about 500 bird species, plus or minus a couple. And we'll get a selection of that here. In the Masai Mara, I would imagine that there's probably about the same number of bird species. It's not quite, it's on the equator, but it's not quite a tropical jungle where you'd expect more birds to occur. Perhaps one of my colleagues could answer that question a little bit better. I know that Tristan is an avid birder, as is Brent, and both of them would know the answer to this question, having probably been asked it a few times. How many birds? I'm trying to think. I tell you there are 260 trees, but I can't remember how many birds there are. Can you believe it? So, Kaylin, there will probably be in and around 500 at both locations. I don't think that there'll be more than that here. Now, this particular bourbon hasn't got any flowers on again. That's interesting, you know. I wonder if it's just the females that get flowers, and it's not the male trees. None of these bourbons around this particular area have got any flowers on. I did see one yesterday with some flowers on. Not today. Kathy, you want to know what are those African trees called that are flat on top? Kathy, they are quite aptly called the umbrella thorn acacias, or we're not allowed to use the word acacia, we've got to use the word Vichilia now. So it's Vichilia tortilis is the umbrella thorn acacia. Vichilia tortilis. And have that fantastic flat top crown, and give you that awesome, like, umbrella-like shape. So the flat-topped umbrella thorn Vichilia, and then the camel thorn Vichilia also gives a nice flat top as well. The camel thorn Vichilia, but the best one that you're thinking of is that the umbrella thorn one. Lovely tree. We're coming close to Twin Dams, which is also where there was a leopard seen a little bit earlier today. Also, just making sure that I arrive in these areas as quietly as I can. See the Mediterranean rim in and around Morocco. You can just see the one tail feather of this one sticking out the top there. This is a pale form Wahlbergs, and they come back to the same nest year after year after year. Interesting to know how many years this particular bird has nested in this area. Eagles, of course, like parrots, are some of the most long-lived of all the birds, and it's not uncommon to have birds living for 40 or 50 years. Kanoa, you would like to know if there are ravens here at Djuma. That's actually a nice question, Kanoa, because of course ravens are considered to be a pest and a sign of an unhealthy environment. Kanoa, here you sometimes see the pied raven, but sometimes. I've heard them a very quick glimpse of a grey duiker that was in the bushes there. So Kanoa, that's a nice question. Pied ravens are considered naturalized birds. In other words, they were introduced here. They're not endemic to this area. They were introduced, but they've become so common and so widespread that they are now deemed naturalized. There is no way that we'd get rid of them, even if we wanted to. Sadly, South Africa, well, let's say as a triumph, South Africa has won the race against the Indian house crow, but sadly Kenya has lost the race against the Indian house crow, and it is everywhere in all the major cities. And we're going to see a very determined Indian house crow population growing to encompass over the years the areas that we have for the endemics inside the Mara over years to come. All right, what we're going to do is send you all the way over to Scott, who is sitting on the banks of the fantastic and well-known Mara River.
Yes, indeed, we are sitting on the banks of the beautiful Mara River. There you can see some funnels where the wildebeest come crashing down into the river. This is one of their main crossing points called Miti Moja, which means one tree, and that's because there's one tree directly behind me. As you'll notice, I'm enjoying a cup of coffee. We're a little bit tired after the last 3 nights that we spent out. Well, last night we went to bed early, but we had quite a busy day celebrating the final TV show. So a coffee is in order to pick up one's energy levels before we head on. And we just thought we'd stop here and enjoy this beautiful spot. We don't spend... So that, for those of you who have been with us for the whole safari, would have seen from a distance. You can see there are some wildebeest dotted below it. There we go. Oh no, those are topia. A little bit further to the left, closer to us, there's a decent-sized herd of wildebeest. Certainly enough to enjoy watch crossing. There's some more that Jandre's found. So a little bit of general game in the area, but not nearly as much as we've seen in the couple of months that have passed by. I'm told quite a few people would like to know if this is the same highly technical, specially ventilated shirt that I wore on my interview many years ago. And I don't think so. That one's probably in pieces by now, but I do like this style of shirts. So I've had quite a few of them, but they're quite skinny. You can see there's the problem over there. There's a slight little gap. The flies are enjoying direct access to my skin. Just letting them get involved in the action too, which I think is only fair. Rather there than on my face. So we're going to finish this cup of coffee and then head off further down the river. There's probably about 2 kilometers till you get to a bridge called the Purungat Bridge. And south of that, it's the Tanzanian border. So from there, we are going to head inland away from the river, up onto a hill. Hopefully we're going to find some wildebeest there or any action on the way home. Up till now, we have covered 33 kilometers this afternoon, so it's been quite a long safari, but we've been wanting to cover as much ground as possible. Delicious. Filter coffee. Kenya is well known for its delicious coffee. So this is it called a French press, I believe, or a plunger? That's the coffee we use. We get the pre-ground grains, very, very tasty. And we pre-make them and then pour them into... Let me show you the flask. It's huge. 3 liters of coffee is the minimum we will travel with on our 1-star hotel. Good, well let's show you one last view of the river. There haven't been any crocodiles that I've spotted just yet. So there we're looking upstream. Beautiful. Let's see what we can see up there. Anything going? Oh, well spotted. There are some hippopotamuses. There we go. They'll be getting ready for an evening out. Is that a bird on one of their heads? Was I imagining things? What's that one doing? I wonder. I thought the one on the right had something on its head, but maybe it was just its ear. No crocodiles on the banks. And like I said, they'll be heading out soon to start looking for their 40 kilogram or so grassy salad. It's not going to be too tasty at the moment. It's quite dry, and certainly some rain will be very welcome in these areas, because the herbivores have got it fairly tough at the moment. Beautiful. Oh, let's see what's happening over on the other side of the vehicle. Sorry, Bex, I can't copy you here. Just letting Becca know that I can't share any of her questions. It's just a bit shaky, basically, so every second word comes through. But let's take a look at the beautiful glowing pink horizon as the sun begins to set. Sadly, there are no dinosaurs silhouetted in it, but there's a topi in the foreground and some happy tourists in the background. Oh, there's something silhouetted. What a bonus. Some Thompson's gazelle. Good. Very, very marvellous. Oh, okay, no, there was some Impala that were chasing one another, but they've stopped. And we are going to, well, I'm going to have this cookie, finish my coffee, and you guys are going to go across to James.
Lucky old him. I'm attempting now to find these lions, which I think are around here somewhere. And then I probably will do the same thing. I will pour a cup of coffee for my good self. I might offer Fergus one. We have Siri sitting on the back today, believe it or not. The real Siri, not my phone Siri. Might offer her one too. I think these fellows here are looking at elephants. We've got the lioness. Oh, she's up. She's going to eat an elephant. Fantastic. There is the sausage tree pride, everybody. There be they, sitting, standing now. Quite possibly having been chased to the sort of point of getting up by those elephants. There's lightning in the background. There's giggling from a vehicle. It's all happening out here. So for the uninitiated, that is the sausage tree pride, featured quite prominently in our TV shows. They live between pretty much here and the escarpment. I'm just going to get out of the way of this fellow in his vehicle, otherwise he's going to run us down like mangy dogs. There we are. Vive la France. Right, we've said goodbye to them. Let's move in here and have a look-see at the lions. Try not to get stuck on the way. We made it. Phew. The drainage systems on these roads, because they are so busy, they're extensive. Which means, I see they're on the other side of a fairly large pit. Not be able to cross. Anyway, we'll stick this side for now, before they go off and try and hunt the elephants.
What are we looking for?
It's these things here, these cats are just over here. Yeah. Wonderful. There they are. Now, of course, the assessment at this time of the day is... She got up to try and get a francolin that was flying past. That was particularly inane. As I said, the trick at this time of the day is to see how full they are. Christine, you're wondering about cats' whiskers and whether they use them for balance. I think they do to a certain extent. No, in fact, I'm not sure if that is in fact an apocryphal story. I'm just trying to remember about when I last read about whiskers. I don't think balance is a huge part of whiskers. I might be wrong, though. As far as I'm aware, they are largely for sensing sort of things in front of the face, perhaps below the eye line and to the sides, because of course, cats don't see as well to the sides as some animals do. But personally, I've read many things about whiskers, and very few of those sort of theories make a huge amount of sense to me. So I'm not really sure. And as Scott was saying earlier, of course, leopards definitely have the longest whiskers. And they live in, I suppose, the thickest bush, so maybe it has got something to do with stopping them banging their heads against things, but I don't believe that that's right. There we have them, and they may get up and decide to go hunting. They may not. We will see. I don't think we're going to move too far from here over the next little while. I think they look fairly hungry, so we might be very lucky. Now, this pride seems to have, if not split, it certainly has had a temporary movement into two prides. And initially, I think when we got here, there were 5 lionesses in the pride. She's looking at something. I can't see what it is on account of the fact that Fergus blinded me with the light. No, there we go. Now I can see. I still can't see what she's looking at, though. Quite possibly some zebra down there. No, I know you can't see there, Fergus. Would you like me to move the car for you? Or are you going to grunt again if I'm...
That was a grunt because I squashed my foot.
Oh, you squashed your foot. Right. Sorry about that. Let me just move slightly. Fergus is quite a vocal cameraman, and when he damages himself, he does tend to make utterances that are not necessarily entirely appropriate. She's calmed down. I was saying something about the sausage tree pride. Yes, 5 lionesses, I think it was. 3 of them seem to have wafted off somewhere else. But the 2 here and all of these cubs, 5 of them, seem to be the mainstay of the sausage tree pride at the moment, including Jamie's very favourite, the pale one that you can see there just over the top of the windscreen. I'm sorry, I've parked at a funny angle, which makes it very difficult for Fergus not to film the windscreen. She is very pale, isn't she? If you were watching the TV show, you'll know, of course, that Jamie spent all 2 hours of the TV show with them, and they played and played. It was wonderful to see. Alrighty, now... been instructed to stay right where we are. Rebecca, we are going to stay right where we are, I promise. The sun has now departed these parts, but, well, it hasn't departed South Africa yet. And on account of the fact that it hasn't departed South Africa, we're going to hand you over to Stef, who I believe would like to show you what it looks like over there.
The South African Kruger National Park dry season sunset, basically. And I say dry season because the tree you're looking at doesn't have any leaves on. In summer that would be almost completely obliterated by a green thick bush, and we'll just get a haze of the sunset. Isn't that fantastic? A lot of dust in the atmosphere this time of the year. I think it's almost what coalesces the rain and calls it, basically, is this dusty atmosphere which allows for these very diffuse red orangey sunsets. And although we had a little bit of rain this morning, I don't think it got rid of all of the dust in the atmosphere. Lovely, isn't it? Really beautiful view. Stark contrast to the sometimes quite sharp cloud-lined sunsets that you get in the Mara. Here, although we've got a huge escarpment as well in the Drakensberg, it is much further away. It's about 80 miles or so away from where we are at the moment, not right on our doorstep. And so you have to go to very specific places where we are now to see a ridged outline. But very often we get these clouds that you're seeing now. Peachy coloured sky. you'd like to know what the local time and temperature is right now. Louise, what is the exact time and temperature? Chuck, Louise is our director, and she'll have that on hand. And it is 26 degrees Celsius and 79 degrees Fahrenheit. And the time now is, just again with the time there, Louise, I think it's 17:40. So 20 to 6. Oh, yeah, exactly. 17:40, 20 to 6 is the time where we're sitting right now. And 79 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, which is 24 degrees centigrade. That is the time now, and it'll start to get about midsummer. We're looking at December on the solstice. You're looking at the sunset being about an hour different to what it is right now. I'm busy sitting over here, and by different I mean an hour later than it is right now. And we're very fast starting to get longer days out here, earlier mornings and longer days. And the reason why I'm sitting here is because there was a leopard seen here this morning. Leopard do move in the middle of the day. Some leopard are very characterful by comparison to lions, who tend to be quite routine based. You get some leopard that will walk in the middle of the day. Kruger was one, a female leopard that went missing a couple of months back. This used to be the core of her territory, and even though she's got two cubs, a male and a female cub, that live in this particular area, they might have different characters to what she was. You might find that one enjoys climbing to the tops of trees, others would enjoy never being in trees, walking in the middle of the day versus walking late at night, covering long distances or short little bursts where they do zigzags inside their territories. It's going to be quite interesting to see what these two young cubs get up to as they get a little bit older. And now, 342 Dream, you wanted to know what is the oldest living tree here or in the Mara. It's quite an interesting question. 342 Dream, as would be where you got that Twitter handle from. But that is another conversation, I suppose. Let me think. So one of the oldest species of trees that we'd find over here would be the baobab tree, with the oldest tree around about 2,000 years old. Being in this particular area. Older than that would be one of the olives. The wild olive tree grows to an immense age. And just younger than that would be leadwood trees, the Combretum imberbe. So those would be the three trees that are the oldest in this area. We don't find baobabs right where we are now. They occur just a little bit outside of where we can drive around in. But leadwoods, there's some big leadwoods over here, and they'll be in and around the 1,000 years old, 1,000 to 1,500 years old, and then older than that would be the olives, with the oldest olive in South Africa being 400 kilometers from where we are now, north and west in that direction there. A wild olive tree that a friend of mine knows exactly where it's growing, but he refuses to take me. It's been carbon dated, I think, at about 3,000, just over 3,000 years old. Isn't that amazing? A living being that's so old. Must be one of the oldest living plants on the planet. Tree is seen go past it in its 3,000 years. I must be honest, the baobab tree that's 2,000 years old that's near my house, an immense tree that you can go and sit next to, and to think that it's been growing here for 2,000 years, it's mind-boggling. Now to answer your question about the Mara, I don't actually know, to be honest with you. I would imagine that it would be one of the olives as well. You do get olives up there. I don't know the trees well enough there yet. We've only been there for a season. I've only spent 6 months there, of which I spent a good 4.5 months not anywhere close to the game reserve, but building a camp there. And so I haven't had enough time to speak to the local guides there and to find out which is the oldest tree, which takes the longest to grow, to go through the dendrology of that particular area and to find out what is it that makes this place tick from a plant point of view. So I'm looking forward to uncovering those facts and figures over the years to come, but it's not something that I've been able to do in the short time that I've spent up there recently, at least anyway. But definitely I can do that here. I'll carry on thinking about anything older than that, but one person who might be able to tell you something about old trees is my friend James Hendry, another fount of fantastic information. So he wants to tell you a little bit more about the trees in the Mara.
I think that's Stef struggling for something to say when he says, I've got such fantastic information. I'm afraid on the score of old trees in the Sabi sand, I really couldn't help you. Stef, I suspect, during that sequence told you about the olive tree in the Waterberg. Did he do that, Rebecca? He did. And it's a lovely story of that olive tree in the Waterberg, which I think, 3,000 odd years old, is that correct? See if Rebecca remembers. Somewhere about, she says, which means she doesn't remember. I was thinking I have no idea what's the oldest tree in this area, but I do know that there are olive tree species that you find around here. So I suspect that if there is a really substantially old tree around here, could well be an olive tree. So maybe that's what that is. Ooh, these lionesses are getting active. That's very pleasant to see. And they're coming this side of the drainage line. This is magnificent stuff. Snazzy, you want to know if we use the olive tree for health or to eat? As far as I'm aware, the olive tree species that we get in this area are not in fact, or do not produce fruits that are edible. I'm just going to move back a little bit so we can see where these lines are going. And there are lots and lots of olive species that you get around here. Now, as Scott was saying, he was drinking his coffee, so I am as well, which is why my right hand is out of the window. And Rebecca's told me not to spill it, which obviously means that I'm not drinking very quietly, and I apologize for that. Just wait here. I think they're going to go off down in this direction. There's some more elephants there, but I can't see anything else that they might want to eat. If you're wondering why I've changed my hat, it's because there was a wind and it was blowing my leather hat around the place, so I've put on a peak cap. Hopefully there'll be some playing now. Brilliant. They're moving into a nice open area. Fantastic, I can't believe this. Can't believe our luck. Well, I think we'll follow them. It's difficult driving and drinking, you know, Fergus. Alright, there's a big... Oh, this is going to be very challenging. There's a fairly large bump here. I might have to just empty this slightly. Now, proud cat mama, you're wondering if these cats are old enough to hunt, if the cubs are old enough to hunt. Almost certainly not. They're old enough to catch small things for themselves, but in terms of... Whoa! In terms of... I didn't spill a drop there. In terms of actually catching them things for them, or aiding in a much larger hunt, like, say, a wildebeest or zebra or buffalo, no, they'll be absolutely useless, and they'll be a hindrance. Now, they're just scanning the plains because of their eyes are so good, of course, seeing if there isn't anything that they might want to catch. They look relatively hungry, which is quite nice. Often what happens now, of course, once they've got up, they've done their initial move around, they'll lie down again for another half an hour or so. Which just seems to be what they're thinking about doing now. We'll just get into a position where we can see them nicely. There we go. Alrighty. Scott seems to have managed to find himself some signal and a little bit of communication with Rebecca, so let's head across to him and find out whether his ponies have put on their pajamas.
Hello everyone, and welcome back onto the Puckosaurus Rex. That's the name of this vehicle. Its short abbreviation is Pucka, which means cat, but it's a dinosaur-like cat, hence Saurus Rex, as its rest of its name. There's also a thermal imaging flare, which has just come to life. It's mounted on the door of the vehicle. It's a very cool toy. Now, because we have switched over to our nighttime equipment, it means that the lens on the camera is too long to focus on me, so you will no longer be seeing me. Well, if you do, it will be a little bit blurry, like this. I will not really be able to focus on it, sadly. Steffi, you would like to know... What would you like to know, Steffi? It's completely slipped my mind all of a sudden. Forgive me. Oh, if we've got bats in the market. We see them basically every night, really, to be honest. Let's try and show you some tonight. They're obviously tricky to film because they fly very quickly and they're not the biggest bats here. But there most certainly are bats here. That's not a bat, that's an Impala on the horizon with some Thompson's gazelle. Okay, well, James is in a situation that we want to get ourselves into. He is following some lions, and I'm sure you would like to join him in on that action. So off you go, and hopefully the next time you see us, we'll have some lions of our own.
Indeed, and I'm sorry about Scott's break-up in picture, but he's in a difficult area. We're with the back of this little pride now, just with the youngest, or the rearmost cubs, if you like. The adults just up ahead. I can almost make them out with my naked eye, but I'm now going to try and avoid... Ooh, lucky I turned the lights on there. That was very nearly an accident. Come on, little cubby, I need to go around the back of you. There we go. Thank you so much. This is one of those drainage systems that I was talking about. Let's see if we can get across here. There we go. Oh, now, Lloyd, you say cat whiskers detect sound. That's very interesting. Thank you for that. I'd love to know the mechanism by which they then communicate either with the ear, I suppose, or with the... Alrighty. Now we have the lions next to us. There they are. I'm just going to stop here, so I've got I'm a little bit too close to the bars, which is why you're getting that flare, I think. Is it, Ferg? Mm-hmm. And I cannot see anything for them to hunt around here, but we shall follow them and see what they do. There's the two hunting lionesses. The cubs are staying relatively far back. There they are. But they're certainly not sort of waiting. And you can see none of them look very fat. Good news for us. Fergus, what's that in the back? Have you got a tiger moth starting up? Alrighty, we're going to go back across to Stef, but only in 30 seconds. He is apparently heading towards the hyenas. We'll continue following these lions. They're heading now towards some elephants, which would be quite interesting. But while we wait and see what they do, we'll go across to Stef who is in South Africa, about 2,500 miles away, on his way to the hyena den.
We're back down into South Africa, and where we are making our way back into the area where we saw those young lions from a little bit earlier on the drive today. We're going to see if we can make it across the reserve before the end of drive today to go and pop our head in at the hyena den and go and see what's going on over there. So that's something that I've missed being out in the Mara, is access to hyenas and to hyena dens. They are superb value for viewing value. And we did find ourselves fairly far away, or at least by my terms. I know my friend Brent would be able to cover the distance in a blink of an eye, but this is about as fast as I like driving around over here. You just miss so much when you go fast. I suppose in Brent's opinion, you'd miss just as many opportunities for cats and hyenas and lions if you drove any slower than he does. Beautiful bird. Didn't want to land for us. That, if you managed to catch a flash of color that came off the front left of the bonnet, that was the brilliantly colored lilac-breasted roller, aptly named for its rolling display that it would start to do any time now, which I'll show you on a walk. I'll show you on a walk one of these fine days. I must say the temperature is dropping. It's not quite uncomfortable just yet, but it's definitely dropping to a point where I'm considering putting on a jersey, which is unusual because I've been blessed with that sort of Central African highland weather in the Mara, which never gets cold. Beautiful. Jim Lynn, you would like to know if those 3,000-year-old trees, those African olives that we were talking about, still produce fruit. It's a good question. That I don't really know the answer to that question, but I can't imagine why not. Trees wouldn't run out of the energy needed to produce fruit, and I would imagine that they absolutely do. So if I were to take a wild guess at that particular tree, it absolutely would still produce fruit. The baobab trees which are around here, which are 2,000 years old, they all produce fruit still, and flowers. And the leadwoods, which are 1,000 years old, 1,000 to 1,500 years old, they also produce fruit. So I would imagine that a tree would produce fruit if it could. Water and enough sunlight and good enough nutrition dependent, but if it's able to, I would imagine it would absolutely be able to produce fruit, even at that age. It's a nice question there, Jim Lynn. There's some male impala here in front of us. We're going to be slipping by them. Hello? Debbie, you want to know if you really get male and female trees? You absolutely do. There would be marula trees. You get male, which produce a flower, produce fruit. Although I'm trying to think of where I can corroborate that with, because I might be walking myself out onto a limb there. That's actually a good question. I'm trying to think. I've always known it from guiding terminology, talks around the fire and such. Guides talking the most, and field guides are well known for speaking the most unbelievable amounts of rubbish to one another, just in an effort to try and one-up your friend. And so I'm trying to think of where I've heard of these male and female trees. So we've got Impala giving alarm calls here, and I want to know why. So let's just see what this is all about. Remember a little bit earlier we were showing you about, while we have a look into what's bothering these Impala, James has got some awesome action going on. We'll catch up with you in a bit.
have a fascinating little interaction going on here. Look at the elephant and the lions. They can see him. He can see them probably. I wonder if he can, you know. I don't think he's seen them. Elephants don't react like that to lions. They almost always, in my experience, will turn and face him. Look at the little one going towards him there. He's oblivious. Look at the cub trying his luck. Look at the other little one. I don't think they had any idea, no doubt. I'd been more. I may have predicted that slightly sooner. Wow. Isn't that cool? So I don't think he saw them. I'm pretty sure he would have turned to face them if he had. And I'm told that elephants do have a blind spot if you walk up sort of halfway along the body directly to the side, so perpendicular. And then further behind from there, they won't see you coming if they don't hear you coming. And they've done that in the dark. Now, an elephant doesn't really need to see in the dark, of course, because it's so big. And so it really doesn't need its eyes as its major defense. That was fascinating, actually. Let's just move a little bit closer so they're not quite at the end of the light range. Oh, they're in front of us, Ferg. I, of course, can't see them now at all. You have a better view of them than I do. And I'm now, well, we're just waiting to see what happens here. Ooh, now I've got the thermal flare out, and I'm looking around, and what the spotlight did not pick up was another large herd of elephant. Can we, I suppose we can sort of see that, can't we? It's beeping at me now. Shut up. So those little yellow spots there are elephants. Those little, there we are. The ones on the right-hand side are little. How cool this is. And the big bull elephant came back past them. And I'll see if I... This is not, of course, very smooth. There he is. Not the most gorgeous picture in the world, but the way. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go perhaps back to the line, I think, and wandering off in. Let's continue on our merry way. Flare cameras insisting on staring up into the darkness. Now, every so often I will obviously have to turn my headlights so as to avoid us sort of ruining ourselves, if you like, in a ditch. And I might just do that. It might be the headlights. I'll just quickly flick this light on here. We're okay. And now I can sort of see them with this flare camera now, so that's what I'm using to follow them. I can't. Oops. Now, they're heading, unfortunately, towards a non. Maybe they'll come across something before they get there. I'm just going to stop over here.
The moon. Look at what we found enjoying this brilliant vista as well. Just enjoying the sight of the moon. There you go. These Nkuhuma cubs which have been on this termite mound for the whole day and are still here waiting for Mom to return. I have no doubt that they're going to be lying here for most of the evening, because if Mom hasn't fetched them yet, then they're going to need to still hunt tonight before they come back and fetch these youngsters. So I think it's going to be a long, lonely, boring night for them before Mom comes back. That's lovely, isn't it? I always like the way that lions are pretty fluffy when they're this age. So, and their ears always are fluffier than the rest of their bodies, it seems. We're back with you again. Sorry about going to that tech loop, and you know, there's just, like I said, there's this never-ending stream of gremlins today that are creeping into our system, so please excuse us for that. And you'll notice that the picture has changed as well. The picture that you're looking at now is in infrared. We've got some infrared lights out, and that allows us, without any sort of artificial light, to show you these animals. And just have a look at the fact that they are, in infrared, the same color as the termite mound. Isn't that fantastic? And that's because they're giving off the same sort of heat. And unlike adult lions, which will at this particular point in the evening be yawning and be stretching and oxygenating their muscles and getting themselves ready for a night time of hunting, these guys are just getting themselves ready for a night time of sort of vigilant awareness, in a way. At this particular point, they will still and are still susceptible to being killed and preyed upon by male lion. And things like herds of buffalo, herds of elephant will pose a threat to them. Hyena singles, no, not at this particular point. I think these lions, even at this point, will be able to see off a inquisitive. Sorry if it was a clan of hyena, however, I think they'd give these lions a hiding if it was more than 5 or 6 hyena. I don't think they've got too much to worry about. For all of you who are worried about them being abandoned on top of this termite mound, it's a very common thing for lions to leave their youngsters and to forage, and quite often far throughout their territories. Food can be quite difficult to find, and the moms won't stop hunting until they've found something. And in an effort to try and save energy, I suppose, or to try and make it easier for them, quite often the mothers will deposit youngsters, and especially older youngsters like this, ones that are able to better care for themselves and go off and hunt on their own. And so nothing to worry yourselves about. These lions are in good hands. Go after the area, and then moms, of course, to keep them going with everything they need. Now, Monique, you wanted to know how many cubs there are. Right here there are 4. In this particular pride there are 14. Where the other cubs are is a good question. I think the only unknown, the uncertainty at the moment, the have an answer to. It's been something that I've been mulling over in my mind for the whole afternoon. Is normally you have all the cubs left behind together, not just a portion of them like this. And I don't have an answer. What I'll try and guess at is the fact that potentially the other cubs have been left in an area where it's a little bit safer, or they were still to them. So it's a good question. That to me has been a puzzle, an unanswered puzzle at the moment. I must be honest with you. Am I worried about it? No. I think that these lions are, very capable of looking after themselves, and they don't look hungry. profile that we're having a look at on this one lion on the right hand side. Their hips stick out, their femurs in their back legs stick out, their shoulder blades stick out, as well as their and so they're not unhealthy whatsoever. Right, why don't we go and have a look at some basically lions that are doing a little bit more than just trying to impersonate a
pond, which was very uncomfortable. We seem to have escaped that now. And where are we now, Ferg? Sitting at sort of 11 o'clock-ish. There they go. I still can't, with the flare. They're going to try and eat elephants. There's a road up ahead, unfortunately, which is the end of the off-road. James, interesting question. You say, have I learned anything personal about lions? No, about myself, while following lions Nocturnal, which I suspected before, and now I know beyond the shadow of a doubt. And to be nocturnal, some people know about, called melatonin. And melatonin regulates your mood and regulates all sorts of things, but the other thing that it regulates is, of course, your circadian rhythm, which is your body's clock. And your body's clock is very clever because it basically has a rhythm of about 24 hours. And if you spend too much time in the dark, so without any light, so artificial light or natural light, your melatonin. Is she? Go to the front one if you can. Yeah, that's the one. Oh, there's a bit of playing going behind us. What's going on there, Ferg? Something gave her a fright. I suspect maybe it was just the wind and one of the cubs playing. I can't see anything though with the FLIR camera that they might try and have a go at. They're just approaching a road now. Looking for the cubs. Interesting, this looking at the cubs, almost saying, come on, let's move on, rather than saying, stay behind, we're going to hunt. There's Jamie's favourite one. Avoid any confusion, I don't need to keep saying Jamie's favourite one. Stef van Winterboer and his sleeping lions.
Have a look at that. They get like nibbled and balled basically. The ear's always a good indication of what's going on. There you go. I mean, you guys are a bit hungry. But hungry is not starving. And starving is not... They keep on looking south, and I would imagine that if I were to guess where their parents are, it would be south. Monique, you want to know if the two Hyenas could be hunting with a pride? Absolutely, they could be at this particular point. It's not uncommon for young lions and old lions to verbal. I won't contravene an instruction to stay behind. These lions are programmed after years and years and years of natural selection to basically react. Parents giving an instruction like, you stay behind and be safe here. These lions are getting... If I were to guess where their parents are, it would be south. They're now looking south intently, all of them. There you go. View of one of these cubs looking at us with those golden eyes. He's fantastic. Their biology would all be the same. difference although lions are keyed to hunting zebra and wildebeest and that size prey, the lions in the Paradise Pride hunt the crossings on the